Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Thanks so much for your suggestions on the last video, and a special thanks to JV98 Afonso who suggested the vampires from the Castlevania series. I'm going to be focusing on the Netflix show. If you have any suggestions for a show or movie you want me to cover, please leave it in the comments below, and if I use your suggestion, I'll include your comment in the next video. If you enjoyed content on vampire and werewolf movies, leave a like, and if you haven't, consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. Before I get started on Castlevania, I also just wanted to say thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers. Everyone that likes, comments, or just watches the videos, I appreciate it a lot. Okay, now we can get started. Castlevania is an animated horror action adventure series set in a medieval fantasy world. The series is loosely based on the video game series that started out on the Famicom in 1986 and the NES in 1987. Today, the series has nearly 40 games, the latest one coming out in 2021. The main character of the first game is Simon Belmont, but the main character of the show is Trevor Belmont, Simon's father. The show is a Netflix original and is based on the events from Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, and borrows aspects from other games like Symphony of the Night and Curse of Darkness. The creators of the show have clarified that the settings in the animated series are separate from the games, which means that lore, characters, and plots are not exactly the same as in the games and could evolve differently. The show begins with a woman named Lisa arriving at the doors of a large, elaborate castle. In front of the castle is a field of dead bodies on spikes to scare away anyone that would come close. Lisa knocks, and the large doors to the castle open on their own and close behind her. She walks down a hallway and is greeted by a man at the top of the stairs, and she introduces herself as Lisa from the village of Lupu, and she wants to be a doctor. The man walks a few steps and vanishes, then reappearing in different places around the room. The man then appears behind her and introduces himself. I am Vlad Dracula Tepesh, and I do not get many visitors. What do you have to trade for my knowledge? Or have you loaded yourself with silver and crosses and garlic and superstitious fear? Lisa says, I'm not really interested in superstition. I want to heal people. I want to learn. Will you help me? Dracula is surprised and says, you are definitely different to most humans I have met in recent times. Lisa says, maybe I can teach you to like people again, or at least tolerate them, or stop putting them on sticks. But Dracula laughs and says, I gave that up a long time ago. Dracula asks, where is Lupu village? And Lisa says, you don't travel much, do you? But Dracula replies, I can travel. This entire structure is a traveling machine. And although Dracula's castle can travel anywhere in the blink of an eye, Lisa can tell that he hasn't left this place in a very long time. Lisa tells him you should travel the world like people do. You might like it. Dracula says, you offer for me to walk to Earth like an ordinary peasant. Well, I give you the knowledge of immortals, the true science. We see Dracula has all kinds of scientific devices that far surpass what is available at the time. These devices are so advanced for the age that most people would consider them magic, including electricity, steam-powered machines and mechanisms, some things almost futuristic. It is implied that the entire castle was built by him. Having been alive so many years, Dracula is a genius and has become a master in many fields of science. His son says he has centuries worth of knowledge, things humanity has learned and forgotten 3 times over. Lisa is mesmerized by the room and its devices. As Dracula said, his entire castle is a traveling machine. A woman says they have heard of the castle, but it's hard to separate myth from truth. They say the castle moves without moving. It just suddenly appears. Dracula is seen using this magical object to pick where the castle moves to, and the castle is apparently moved by a giant engine. So Dracula has magical objects as well as scientific ones. But in Targo Vista, Wallachia 1475, Dracula's wife Lisa was to be burned at the stake for witchcraft. Her name is now Lisa Tepesh, so in between them meeting in the castle and now, they've gotten married. Dracula was away traveling at the time, like Lisa said he should. The bishop and the members of the church went into Lisa's house after hearing about her healing and found all her scientific instruments, and they mistook this for evil magic. Vlad arrives at his wife's home, burnt to the ground, and an old lady approaches and asks, are you Mr. Tepesh? Vlad only asks, what happened? Where is my wife? The old woman informs him that the bishop took her. Witchcraft. They're burning her at the stake. Vlad asks if she's being held at the cathedral, but the old woman says she'll be dead by now. We see Vlad from the side, and although he makes no sound, he cries blood. Vlad speaks aloud. I do this last kindness in her name. She who loved you humans and cared for your ills. Take your family and leave Wallachia tonight. Pack and go, and do not look back. For no more do I travel as a man. And Dracula takes the form of a demon sheathed in flame and then teleports with a beam shooting into the sky. So Dracula was traveling as a man, just like Lisa said that he should, only to return to his wife dead, killed by the church for practicing science. She did her best to convince Dracula that not all humans were bad, and if only they had the knowledge he had, they wouldn't be so ignorant and superstitious. But the same humans she tried to convince him were good took away from him what he loved most, his last hope in humanity. After Lisa is burned, the people are still gathered in the city. Dracula appears with an explosion as a flaming skull right where Lisa was burned, asking what has happened to his wife. The mayor first believes it to be Satan, but the skull then takes the form of Dracula's head, and he asks what has happened to his wife. The mayor is afraid and in disbelief. He says that Dracula was supposed to be a myth, a story made up by heretics. So Dracula has been living alone in his castle, away from humanity for so long that humans have actually forgotten that he exists. Dracula becomes enraged. I give you 1 year, Wallachians. You have 1 year to make your peace and remove any marks you have made upon the land. 1 year, and then I'll wipe all human life from the lands of Wallachia. You took that which I love, so I will take from you everything you have and everything you have ever been. 1 year. And he disappears, causing glass to shatter and fire to rain from the sky. Back at Dracula's castle now, he is furious. He says it will take him 1 year to summon an army from the guts of hell itself. We fast forward to a year later, and the people of Wallachia did not heed Dracula's warning. The bishop says that the devil was supposed to return in a year, but here we stand. Do we not know the devil to be a liar? But as the archbishop speaks, the sky darkens and begins to rain blood on the city. Dracula emerges in the sky from a tornado of fire and says, I gave you 1 year. Instead of take my warning and leave, you celebrate the day you killed my wife. You had your chance. His castle appears in the city, and all the windows open and demonic gargoyle-like winged creatures attack. Dracula tells them to kill everything they see, and after this city, go on to the other cities and kill. Dracula's army, also referred to as the Night Hordes, were created by Forge Masters. The Night Hordes are only loyal to the Forge Masters that created them. They can use a special magic to place demons from hell into dead bodies, creating terrifying creatures. And although vampires can perform magic, there has never been a vampire Forge Master. Dracula's Forge Master Isaac says that this kind of magic requires a human touch. Different Forge Masters prefer to use different tools. Isaac works best with a dagger, while Hector says he works best through a hammer. The tools they use for forging must be unique or custom made. They cannot just use any weapon, and one Forge Master would not be able to use another Forge Master's tool. When the Night Hordes attack a city, creatures enter the church to kill the bishop who condemned Dracula's wife. He says, you cannot enter a house of God, and the creature agrees, but says God isn't here. This is just an empty box. So holy places and objects hold power over these creatures, and if the church grounds were still consecrated, they wouldn't have been able to enter, but it seems vampires can still enter churches. In the Castlevania games, being a vampire is a curse that makes you evil, and they lack free will, similar to the Night Hordes. But in the show, they have changed this. Vampires have their own free will and can decide to be good or bad for themselves. The vampires of Castlevania are immortal. They are tall, pale-skinned creatures with fangs and sharp nails like claws. When enraged or in the dark, their eyes can glow red. Their eyes also turn red like they're filled with blood when they're in a rage. They have super senses, strength, and can move extremely fast. Vampires are easily able to run down humans and leap great distances. Some vampires have the ability of speed so fast you can't perceive them, such as Alucard and Dracula. Although Alucard's ability seems to be unique with a distinct red. Some vampires have the ability to turn into a mist like classic vampires, and some others have different transformations. A vampire named Lenore and Alucard are able to turn into a small swarm of bats, and Alucard can also take the form of a wolf. It's unclear if these abilities are unique to certain vampires, or if it's a learned ability. In one of the Castlevania games, Alucard becomes a wolf because he became a vampire during a full moon. But we know that Alucard in the show was born a vampire, so possibly he was born on a full moon. Vampires also have amazing healing abilities. While fighting, Alucard is stabbed in the torso, and when the knife is removed, his wound heals instantly. Alucard is definitely stronger than almost all other vampires, but regular vampires still have extremely good healing abilities. Alucard also says that he grew up very fast, literally. Although he is only 19, his body is fully matured, and according to him, has been so for some time. So although vampires live longer, they mature at a younger age. Some vampires have the ability to defy gravity and float around weightlessly, as well as fly at high speeds. But not all vampires are seen doing this, so this could be a form of magic. Vampires can enjoy regular food, but they get all their nutrients from consuming blood, and if they don't consume blood, they would starve. Vampires must also consume blood to maintain their strength. A few generals in Dracula's court hint toward the fact that they think he hasn't consumed blood in a while, so he would be easier to kill. Vampires can feed on animal blood if they need to, and it seems to have no disadvantages over human blood aside from the taste. If gravely wounded, vampires can put themselves in a deep sleep or suspended animation. After Alucard is wounded by his father, he slept for a year in order to help his wounds heal faster. There seemed to also be a device that was feeding him blood while he slept. Vampires are weak to the sun and crosses, stakes through the heart, burning, consecrated weapons, which make them explode in fire, and holy water, which also makes them catch fire. It's also said that running water can be harmful to vampires, and that's how the Greeks trapped them on small islands. Vampires can also die if they're damaged beyond their healing ability, like when Alucard tears vampires apart in his wolf form. Before entering Isaac's home, Dracula asked for permission to enter, but I think he was just being polite because we see many other vampires throughout the series smashing into houses and having no issues. Trevor explains the reason that vampires are weak to crosses isn't because of religion. He says vampires are basically an evolved predator species, so their eyesight is pretty different than ours. Turns out, if you put a big geometric shape right up close in their field of vision, it confuses them and makes them panic. So crosses working on vampires has nothing to do with religion, but holy water and consecrated weapons can still kill them. One traditional weakness that these vampires don't have is garlic. Although Dracula is the king of vampires, there are many vampires that rule their own respective areas of the world, having their own armies. There is a wide range of different ethnicity of vampires, implying that there are vampires in every corner of the world, not just Wallachia. Dracula. Dracula is the strongest of all vampires. He is seen easily defeating other vampires and Trevor Belmont in a one-on-one fight with ease. Not all vampires are seen using magic, but Dracula has exceptionally strong magic. He can fly, move even faster than his son Alucard, create illusions, and can create a giant fireball that took a powerful magician, Trevor Belmont, and Dracula's own son to stop it, while Dracula flicks away their attacks like nothing. When Dracula appeared in the fire where his wife died, and when he appeared in the sky over Targo Vista, he was using the magic mirror in his castle. We see that after he disappears from the fire, he appears in front of the magic mirror. I thought it was interesting that when he makes a fist here, because his nails are so long, they stab into his hand, causing him to bleed. But it would probably heal right away, so he doesn't care. Vlad can also control bats. I'm not sure if this is a vampire ability or a magical ability, but he uses bats to form a giant version of himself outside of his castle. Dracula is more impervious to all traditional weaknesses and cannot be killed by consecrated weapons like regular vampires. When other vampires are hit with Trevor Belmont's Morning Star, they explode, but Dracula is only slowed down momentarily. Consecrated weapons still hurt him, but will not finish him off. When attacked by the Morning Star, Dracula says, "I cannot be killed by your human magics," implying that magic that humans and vampires can perform are different. The only way to truly kill Dracula is to stake him through the heart and then burn his remains, because if you only stake him through the heart, he could be brought back to life. Dracula had a son with Lisa named Adrian Tepesh, but he comes to be known as the opposite of Dracula, Alucard. He is 19 years old when he confronts his father and was attacked. That means Lisa and Vlad were together for at least 19 years. Because Dracula is a vampire and Lisa is a human, Alucard is a dhampir, or a half vampire. So these vampires can reproduce just like humans do. And because Alucard is a half vampire, he can walk in the sun. According to a vampire named Godbrand, Alucard knows almost as much and is nearly as strong as Dracula himself. He seems to be naturally gifted with strength and powerful magic like his father. Unlike his father, Alucard likes magical weapons. Alucard says his father disliked magical weapons because he thought he had enough magical strength within himself, and physical objects should just be what they are. Alucard, on the other hand, uses a magical sword that can float around on his command and attack on its own, being able to fight one person while the sword fights another. Alucard can already move extremely fast, and while in wolf form he can move even faster. He can still also use his magical sword while in wolf form, and even catches it in his mouth and throws it, killing a vampire. Well, that's it for the Vampires of Castlevania. I took another chance on an animated show, and I wasn't disappointed. They changed Dracula from the games to make you more sympathetic toward him, but I didn't mind at all. It makes for a really great dynamic between him and Alucard. It's awesome having an audience that gives me such good recommendations. This video took me a little longer to make because although there's a lot of information on the games, I wanted to watch all 4 seasons of the show so I didn't miss anything in case there was differences or they introduced new things. So this video was just about the vampires from the Netflix series, not the games, because I'm sure there's a lot of differences. Like always, I talked about the main plotline of the story so you could have a good idea of what's going on, but I tried not to give too many spoilers so you could still watch the show and enjoy it for yourself. If there's any show or movie you want me to cover, leave it in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't. You'll see all my new videos when they get uploaded, and I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.